Are we live?
Are you guys okay the other day? And I was like, no, we're fighting. And he's like, okay, well, I'll leave you alone. That's the best way to get rid of a salesman.
Right? No. We're dead nuts in the middle of a knockdown drag out. So if you want to join.
I could care less what the couch looks like, but if it's not comfortable, I don't want it. So I was giving her lots of leeway, but she was adamant about a certain couch that did not. No, I couldn't put my legs up. It didn't recline. And then she wanted to take away the corner piece that I don't know if you're a couch guy, but if I'm going to sit down and there's no recliner, I'm going to that corner of a sectional.
That makes more sense. And you're not going in the middle.
She wanted to separate them and like a couch love seat thing, so no corner either. And I'm like, no, absolutely freaking no. I won't sit in that room if I have that.
We are now casting, because how is a man going to stick his hand right here and kind of lean back Al Bundy
style? She's like, it's comfortable. I'm like, yeah, but it's not. This is not ever comfortable with my legs. Like, or, we'll put an ottoman. But ottoman, this is not comfortable either.
Agree.
It's better, but this L shape, not good. Yeah, well.
So is it a round one that she got?
So this one's actually a sectional, and it reclines. So checked all my boxes.
She sounded excited.
I know. And I think it's because I gave one requirement. It either reclines or has a corner piece. So it had both. So
and this one had both, and she, hence the video in the middle of
our podcast.
I love it. I love it. To Caston, I was thinking about something
that's dangerous.
Yeah, that kind of has a lot to do with what we've talked about historically, and it kind of ties some things together that I found interesting. Anyway, got lost in my thoughts. I got a call from an old client, and it was a very challenging case. And we're going to call this client an old client. That's what we can call him, Joe. And he served some time in prison, and he's not going to be able to be around his kids for the foreseeable future. And hopefully he can earn that back through time. He was able to be with them during his release while we were fighting the case. The case went on for a few years. It's a really ugly case, really tough case. Some of the toughest types of criminal cases we handle. And so he calls me, and he had an amazing, he's always one of the clients that you've had these where you just quite can't explain how they can be so amazing and resilient. I think the word is what I'm looking for. So I started thinking, well, way back when you and I started this pod, talked about your lineage, my lineage, the fact that you jumped into immigration law with very little tutelage.
True.
You just jumped in. I'm going to do immigration law. I think that I like this. I mean, you were with, I think, somebody for 6 months.
I think maybe even less. I think November, and then I was out by April. Yeah, so 6 months. My math's good.
Yeah, that's pretty good math. Mm-hmm. And you don't come from a long lineage of attorneys. Your father's not an attorney.
I don't even think I have. No, I have maybe some cousins, but yeah, nothing like, where I was able to model or emulate.
Right. And I don't have anybody. I mean, I had nobody that even graduated college. So this was a new thing on my end too. So I understood your story.
My dad, grandpa, none of them are college guys. They went a year or so.
So you get it. So it's kind of like you get thrown in. You're 6 months in. Obviously, you didn't know what you were doing way back when, and you kept cranking and grinding. So this guy calls me, and he's been spending 4 years with other folks with similar issues that he had, charges and things like that. And he said, how did you know every little turn to build this thing to where I got 4 years and there's people in there doing 10 times that? And I started thinking about your beginnings, and my beginnings are similar. I mean, we just kind of got kicked into the deep end and started flailing until we could make it look prettier. The procedure of every little client I was part of, because I didn't know I didn't need to be part of so many things. And so every little tiny step they took, I took with them for many years, until I realized, oh, I don't have to sit in this interview for probation. That's between them and the probation department. And the probation department's going to generate a report, and whether I'm sitting
there, whether you were there or not.
Right, whether I'm sitting there, falling asleep on it or not. Now, there's sometimes I have clients where I'm going to need to hold their hand a little bit. But for the most part, no. And this is back in the day. Now I'm just advising all the time. Okay, this is blah, blah, blah. But I found that these little nuances, these little tiny procedural things, and I'm sure it's the same. I just wanted to kind of dig a little bit. Is it the same in your world? I'm assuming yes. Where all of these little things, you take somebody from the beginning that has this little flicker of hope, and you end up way over here at the end, whether it's years in this case or in many of your cases, years where something remarkable was able to happen, but it was the journey that got there. It was as straight a line as you could possibly draw. It was the little tiny things all along the way that came together at the end to produce this result. That frankly, it's interesting to self-reflect on this, but to realize that there's likely not very many attorneys that can do that.
Yeah, so I've got the nice thing about, and it may be a little bit different for you and I in the sense that your job most of the time is to minimize consequences, right?
Yeah.
So that's a blessing, and like this guy was approaching you and saying, look, I see what could have been the consequences, what ended up being the consequences, and he's super grateful for what you did. Mine has some elements of that. I also have the element which I love, which is unique about my job, is being able to provide a benefit. So a lot of lawyers are just defending or attacking or whatever else.
Right.
I actually get to do something where there's a lot of times a benefit that comes to it, and that benefit may be a green card or citizenship or whatever else. And so that's kind of a rewarding element that probably keeps me in the field that I'm in, because I think I would burn out if I was a family law attorney or something like that, where you're constantly dealing with.
We got that going on around
Yeah,
here.
and I know, and I admire the people and the personalities that can do that, because that would be tough for me. So I see that, but I've had a full circle moment come in the last 2 weeks, and I'll kind of explain to you why I couldn't do the podcast last week, and it worked out that you couldn't either. But so there's been this process of we've talked about it in podcasts, of priorities, right? Priorities for deportation. So there was programs introduced both during Biden's administration, even during Trump's first administration, there was elements of this, not maybe quite as extensive, and during President Obama's, where there was just priorities. So a judge could look at, there was case law that established, and even memos and internal stuff that ICE could look at a case. The judge could look at a case and say, hey, 20 years here in the United States, 5 kids, no criminal history. I don't want this case. Like, let's dismiss this case. And what they did in the past, right now they're dismissing them. Or during Biden's administration, they dismissed those cases. During President Obama's administration, so we're talking from 2010 to 16, something like that, we had this prosecutorial discretion where they administratively closed the case. So in layman's terms, it basically meant it was off the docket. Go on with your life, you can have a work permit. We have no interest in your case, type of thing. Last week, I got served with 200 motions to recalendar those cases. They have a 10-day response window. So basically all my cases I've got about 20 left that haven't been attempted to be recalendared. I got hit with it was the exact same motion almost. It was AI created, I'm sure, signed by the same attorney out in Eloy. Didn't really say anything of material change, which is one of the elements that you have to do to recalendar this case, but basically said they haven't become a green card holder, so we're recalendaring this case. And so on that whole journey, these are people that I had cases that were scared to death in 2010. We fought them. We closed them. Super happy. They've been now family to the law firm now as we've renewed their work permits every year for the last almost 20 years. And then I got a call 200 people last week and say, by the way, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to oppose this motion, but you're going back into deportation proceedings if the judge agrees with the department. So that was like my poor staff, and I'll give them all the props in the world. Caden's been working way more hours than he usually does.
He looks tired.
Cranking out. I mean, we had to hire new staff. Like we've had people like crazy going in there and we're leaving at dark trying to respond to all these motions. We feel like yesterday was kind of our last peak of what we were going. We have some trickled in now from other attorneys because the court, when we went to go turn in these motions, told us that they had been served, or the number was about 11,000 in Phoenix alone. So some attorneys are not caring and they're not responding to them at all, or they're charging an exorbitant amount to take advantage of this issue. We tried not to do that and these are, like I said, these are people that we've gone on this journey for. The nice thing and on that full circle moment, and maybe this is where I'm going to, is that there's been very few of the 200. There's a handful, 3 or 4 that have actually got desperate. And unfortunately, I think they ended up wasting their money, but they went and found another attorney that told them they could do something. And most of them I quizzed and said, how were you able to accomplish it? And it was no. And so, but at that point, so there were a few that said, hey, we've got another counsel, but
Right.
it was cool to see that 190 people were saying,
right,
okay, please, you're still my guy.
Yeah.
Let's fight this. We were in this journey together, and I didn't have a lot that were moving on. So that was nice to see. It was still really rough 2 weeks for me because there was a couple of them. I kept coming home to my wife going, like, I've got a guy that has done like a ton of work for me at the house and has just been like I said, like family to me. He's my painter.
right.
And you've got your mechanic or
Yep.
whoever it is. We've just got these guys that started as my clients and really became members of the family. I've gone to his kids' baptisms and all this different things. And I was just dreading that his motion was going to come in, and it didn't come in the first batch. We got like 140 on like a Monday. And I was like, sweet, it didn't come in. There was another guy too that's my landscaper that I was the same way. And but on Wednesday, 50 more came in, and both of them were in there. And that was a call that I
The dreaded 50.
Yeah, he's at the new home that we're building doing work, and I was like, I don't even want to call this guy. Like, I don't want to have this conversation. And look, we actually got good notice today that we had a few trickle in June that we responded to, and the judge actually denied the department's motion because on a lot of these, we actually are doing things
Right.
outside of the court's jurisdiction. So the judge on one of these ones said, yeah, he's working on a green card. Like, why would I reopen this case? So I'm hoping, but there are several that we don't have new information to provide other than they still don't have any criminal history. They still,
Right.
you wanted to close it
Where
the first time.
they stopped.
Yeah,
And-
where
and
they
that's
stopped,
where it
basically.
died.
And even
Right.
worse is that some of these guys qualified for a form of relief because they had minor children back in 2011, but those children have grown up. So there's a few that if they do get recalendared, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. So that's an aside point to what you were saying, but it was just a rough couple weeks. But it was nice on that what you're saying to see that they were coming back and that they still trusted and knew that we were going to have their best interests at heart. And that journey is now almost 20 years. And there's not a lot of attorneys that handle things for that amount of time. Immigration's a unique issue in that way, especially with the history that's happened back and forth with what we've done with cases that, like, man, I babysat cases for 2011. We're talking
long time.
that long time, almost my
Long
entire
time.
career. So that's in that sense that I'm glad that we've been able to do that journey. And like you, I've streamlined things that maybe I did before where, we know what issues are going on. I happen to be in court for the first time. we're so busy right now that there's been some conflicts in calendar. Usually I'm not the one going to court anymore. I'm managing and talking to clients in the office and kind of managing the office. But my attorneys have been so busy that we've had conflicts in calendar, and I've had to go to courts for the first time in probably 4 or 5 years.
I know you said that last time.
Yeah.
It's
And I walked into the courtroom and it was
back,
like,
Cotter.
it was like cheers and it was like cool and whatever
No.
else. And I yesterday, same thing in USCIS, which I don't often go to, was kind of fun to be in there and reminisce with some of these old officers and whatever else. And so it's fun to get back into even those steps and grinds and whatever else. So I don't want to do it a lot, but
right. It is interesting once you get into managing. It's interesting. I miss it greatly, and I'm thinking, okay, at some point in the future, I'm going to have to step back in and hopefully it's a norm, and cheers thing again.
Feels like a ride the bike a little bit.
I would assume that there's going to be a mixed bag at that point, but we'll see what happens. I find more value as far as the client experience being, in administration and in lieu of being in the courtroom. But again, I feel like we're turning a corner here pretty quick, and I'm kind of chomping at the bit, which makes me a little bit weird. I agree with whomever said that. I heard that it makes me weird. But where I was going is exactly what you're hitting on. Is it's interesting, talking to him, and this has only been a few days, and it's been kind of rolling around in my mind a little bit like a Rolodex, talking to him and realizing something, because I don't feel like we look, we know we're good at what we do. I mean, we know we produce a good result. We know we give a crap. And whether our clients all the time think that or not, because sometimes we're gonna have some clients that have some unreasonable expectations, and something goes haywire somewhere. We're not dealing with people in their best moments, but then again, we're dealing with people in their highest of highs too, as well. So we got to kind of mix that all in. But so I started thinking about it. I thought he's not wrong. Because I know this particular case had as much to do with his effort as ours. He was remarkable. I liken him to Forrest Gump. He's a very dutiful fellow and doesn't question, as far as he doesn't argue. So, okay, you need me employed? Boom, goes and gets a job at Caterpillar.
Good. Accountable.
Gets his, CDL, starts driving, taking 57 shifts. I mean, he's Caterpillar's darling. Well, what does that end up being? A letter from an employer that knows everything about what's going on, and most employers are going to not want that employee in their mix. And they're like, we want him back when he's done. Please don't send him away long. They don't make him like this. Okay, so I suggest I want your hands busy. It's going to make this whole entire system, this whole entire experience for you better. If you work your way through it, work your fingers to the bone. What else are you going to do? Sit around and mope? And so, literally, those are his two options.
Yeah.
I didn't have a drug element to this one, no drug problem, and so that's good too. I mean, that's so he goes on and on and on, and I started thinking it started from the very beginning when he wanted to take this to trial. And I'm like, you can't take this case to trial. Now, at some point, fairly early on, that conversation had to be had. And he elected to stay the course, get the job, be on release, do very well on release, all of these things. So when I handed in what's called a mitigation packet, or they all call it a mitigation. When I handed in a sentencing memoranda that has, like what you said earlier,
equities and balances,
why you shouldn't put him in the drink for 12 years. It was a 4 to 12 year, deuces are wild. He can land anywhere in that 4 to 12 year stretch. And he'd already spent, I'm going to go with a couple of months. So he didn't have a lot of time served. So he'd been out on bond for a while. But had a little bit of time served. Nonetheless, best I'm going to get is 4 years, minus 2 months. I love open ranges. I love a range. I love ranges because that's why we do what we do from step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. We're building.
Because you got a good strategy of how to minimize that.
We're building the human being before that sentencing. We began day 1 on that. And so I started thinking that's a very abnormal approach given what I see that's out there elsewhere. That's the very beginning. You're giving a crap about the beef that you're serving in your restaurant. So
you're looking at the cow?
Right. You're looking at the cow.
Yeah.
You're back looking at the cow. What cows are we going to get in here? And so on. And I was humbled that he put that together while he was in there and asked, hey, I want to get through my new level of incarceration. Because I told him, when you get out, yes, you're not going to be behind the wall anymore, but your life in and of itself is kind of a prison. You're going to have things that you cannot do. You're not going to ever be a free man until you are.
Yeah. And
so he goes, all right, now let's get there. And I thought, all right, let's get there. And so we began again. And it's cool to have that phone call and to realize it, kind of self-reflect why I was looking at the cow when most restaurant owners aren't looking at the cow. They're just, what's the best price of beef, or, what tastes good, or what are people like, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's because I didn't know better. It's because when we got kicked into this thing, you found your sidekick, Patricia, very early on. You're very fortunate there, but she, along with you, have been through this rodeo all the way through.
Yeah, and she was feeling that she was the one that was mostly in the office until dark, trying to, and similarly, like not to toot our horn or whatever else, we get these 200 motions, and every other attorney in the valley is like, yeah, pay me $5,000 and I'll respond to this in 10 days, because and rightly so, they don't have a lot of time, and it takes effort and whatever else. Our strategy was like, look, we've got to charge something because there's 200 motions on our desk, and this is overtime and whatever else. We were not even a tenth of what everybody else was charging, and we did half of them without even collecting first. Right. We just knew that these were family members of the office or
they would
clients, and if they didn't, we'll figure it out. But most of them would, and we understood that we weren't giving them very much notice to have prepared either, and so we felt a little bit unjust calling somebody and demanding give us thousands of dollars right now, or we won't respond. I don't work that way, the threatening part.
Yeah,
and I saw a lot of attorneys doing that, and I get it. I'm not saying that that's wrong. You got to run a business, but I've loved the response that some people are coming in. Okay, like, I'll get you next week, and I turned to Patrice, and she's like, we already filed it. Like, we'll figure it out. And so maybe that'll burn us, but we were in robot mode of just like, we got to get these out. And
it won't burn you.
And so and no matter, you're right. I mean, no matter what, it's going to make me feel good that this client that I've had for 20 years, I was going to bat for him when he was in his emergency.
Now people are attached to your firm.
Yeah, and that reputation.
I get to see that firsthand all the time. It's awesome. It's like, good, all right. I don't have to. He's somebody I don't have to tell. Westover's cross street to go over there and do exactly what he says. And if he says you ain't got no chance, you ain't got no chance. I mean, he's an honest man. And if he tells you, okay, there's some risks, he's weigh them out. And so it's
just met with somebody that's coming over to talk to you later.
Refreshing as all get out. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Refreshing as all get out. That it's just they're going to get what's what however it presents. And I don't dig, because you were telling me about we get people that have a court date within, less than a month. And it might be their first court date in their life. Or we have somebody that has a court date that we know they're going through a divorce. And we know that it's no big deal. Like, it's a who cares moment in time. It's literally scheduling the temporary orders, which is
all
a
the
big deal.
Preliminary
But
stuff.
the preliminary is show up, raise your hand, say, all right, we're whatever. I mean, it's basically a moment in time where the judge can say, and half the time it's not even the judge, but the judge-ish can say, work this thing out best you can. Yeah. And then we'll see you in a few weeks for temporary orders. Now that one's important. But these people are very panicked about going to court. Some of our personal injury folks that are getting in an auto accident and never had anything to do with the legal anything other than maybe trying to fight a ticket once upon the time. And that seems to be one of the best experiences for anybody, legally speaking. Have you ever tried to fight a speeding ticket? Oh, yeah. How'd that work for you? And no one has a real good story with that one. Every once in a while you get that know-it-all guy. And you think, well, why don't you just handle this then? You got this, Bucky. But it's interesting that every little thing beginning in personal injury or in family law or in criminal defense, specifically for me, I spent most of my years there. But I did the same thing with the other two. Like I walked every step to where I could see the little nuances. And I could start to see if a letter from a mom might be really nice and might show family support or show the judge that this person has somewhere to land. Okay, good, great. But a letter from the release, from the probation, it's called release, and you have a release officer. A letter from a release officer saying this person crushed it, checked in when they were supposed to, passed all their drug tests, is been going to this, and that. You get that letter, that's moving the needle.
Yeah.
And you get a letter from a corporation, Caterpillar, saying, we don't know what we're going to do without this guy. We don't know what we did before this guy. I mean, that was wow. I mean, and I got 3 different letters from these folks have a lot of letters behind their name. They're up there with Caterpillar. I don't know if everybody out there knows Caterpillar is an East Valley based corporation. That was awesome. And so I'm sitting there in a 2-hour long sentencing. So just to set this up for you. 99.9% of all sentencings are 20 minutes or less. I mean, you're going long when it's 20 minutes. And I'm talking felony. I'm not talking misdemeanor. I mean, those are very quick. 20 minutes or less. So every once in a blue moon, you'll get a 30, 40 minuter that has a lot of moving parts. And there's, some years to, sometimes you have a no agreements. Those are my favorite, where you can get 0. Those are my favorite, the no agreements. It's deuces are wild. Let's go. But this one had obviously an 8-year spread. And so that's a significant amount of time. 12 years is the max. 4 is the minimum. We agreed on that in the walls. And my client knew that. And so I had a prosecutor do something I've never seen in my life. Now, I don't like this prosecutor, and I don't care if he watches this thing. He might be one of our few viewers on this one. It'll be awesome. He's no longer a prosecutor. He joined the good side, but I still don't care for him.
And he works just next door to you?
He might as well.
He joined your firm last month?
I don't know if I'd hire this guy, but really good friend of mine did.
Okay.
A really good friend of mine did. Yeah, Geigel. Oh, that's going to narrow it down. Here we go. Anyway, and Geigel's very pleased with him. So that's great.
And
but
Jeremy knows what he's doing.
Look, Geigel would be pleased with Satan. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. The dude is just unique. Yeah. He's one of those guys I want to be like when I grow up, and it's just not going to happen. That's him.
Yeah.
And I need either you or him to start running for office, so I could feel good about who I vote for.
Is that me?
It might be your
was
wife
me,
telling you
yeah.
there's another couch.
Well, Jeremy's a good guy.
Great dude.
I haven't talked to him for a minute, but we used to share cases, or at least he'd refer me some cases.
Yeah, he's a great dude, and a good attorney. So anyway, this prosecutor puts on an hour and 47-minute long, hammer job.
So he was.
Oh man, going for the 12, and he said 12 is too
jugular.
little. Da 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 da. Dee.
Jeez.
I mean, really went. And I had literally in this courtroom, I had his family, my client's family, and then I swear every prosecutor in that building was in there, and half the defense bar that was in there too. I didn't realize it was going to catch fire like that. Interesting when you have a bunch of lawyer looky-loos. You can have when you start doing a lot of trials, you end up getting some groupies. They're usually 70 plus years old, and they're going to trial.
Hang out
just
in court.
to hang out in court. It's super interesting.
They need to learn how to golf or something.
They should, but they like that,
It's real life. Yeah.
I
Now
had
they can
some-
do it on a podcast, the true crime stuff.
Right. They do it on the true crime, and it's
you're gonna do it
unfortunate
live.
because at least then they had to get dressed and they went
Yeah.
down to the court.
Now
and
they just sit in their
Now they
bathtub.
just sit in their couch with a recliner and
It's the old person bathtub.
the old person. Oh wow! Okay, we're getting okay. So now
So you got some crowd.
almost 2 hours, and we have video, and we have every piece of evidence, which was very, very touchy and ugly, and a lot of it blotted out because you can only be looking at those things in camera. And so he found a way to where the judge would, this is all a shock to me. Now I'm just sitting here watching this overly long movie, and the judge looks at me. It's Holmberg over there. And he goes, "It's our turn. I've got his mom, wife, brother, a handful employer, a handful of folks that wanted to speak on his behalf, which is common." Said, "Mr. Hogle, do you have anything?" And I just said, "Did you read the settlement memoranda?" Which was solid. And he said, "I did." "Defense rests, Judge." And he goes, "Thank God." And ruled right then. He skipped a ton of steps and said, "I'm going to give him the minimum. Now I'm going to go back." Boom. It just started with ease off. Everybody at ease. I'm going to just go ahead and give you the ruling right now. However, then I'm going to start from where I normally should start from. And it was the fact that, A, I know the judge. B, we went through every little tiny thing, and that judge saw things that judge doesn't see very often. I like this judge. I saw his posture drop and drop and drop during this long, drawn-out, presentation there. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done to say nothing. To say nothing was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I was sitting there with my Ticonderoga #2, biting it like a dog bites a bone, going, "Did you read the settlement conference memoranda?" Just to verify, just to make sure. He goes, "Well, I did." I got nothing. And I remember my client staring over at me. I remember his family kind of fidgeting some. And it worked out really well. I don't make that decision had I not made every step of this voyage, of this journey, procedural journey. It's a procedural journey. Every one of our clients, yours included, there's this procedural, everything's moving and it's hard to teach this too.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got attorneys going out there crushing it, and you're teaching them like Yoda. You're like, "Okay, well, let's slow down there, Turbo. You might want to start over here," and you're able to issue spot much quicker because of all these bumps and bruises that we got along the way from getting kicked into the deep end.
That's funny. Issue spotting is That's an art
Yeah.
that not everybody's going to have, unfortunately. And that's, as I've had new attorneys in the office and come and go, it's a skill I didn't know I had as well as I have it. As you know, a 2-minute conversation, I know exactly what the problem is and how to solve it. And that's not a knock on my attorneys. I think it's just a skill that's really hard. I don't know if it can be taught. The good thing is that's why I'm in the office. That's literally why I made the decision, is because there's so many moving parts right now to our office.
They need you there.
They make a joke that it's go visit the wizard, type of thing. And that's why I do what I do. But it's interesting how that art form, like I'll have attorneys come back and luckily the way that the court procedure works, if you get blindsided by something, you can usually ask for time to brief it or, look at it or take a pause or whatever else. So we don't usually get burned by something, but it's amazing how often, one of my attorneys will come back and be like, holy crap, this is what happened in court. No notice. I was served with this, didn't know how to respond. And it's not because they're not smart or not capable. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'd have knocked that prosecutor. I would have knocked that ice off because that what they're talking about is a joke and whatever else.
It's just going to take 14 more steps, but it's doable.
But yeah, it's still, even if I make the argument, oftentimes the judge just says, okay, we'll brief it, Mr. Westover or whatever else, because I don't know what you're talking about either. And so
I'm not seeing the issue either.
But I love that ability that the more years you do this, or maybe it's just innate, something you're blessed with as when you analyze things, and maybe it would have been great to be using in another job, but for whatever reason in the legal field, it's been a real blessing to me to be able to see those issues. But you're right. Most of it is the issue spotting is one thing, and that can be really effective in a spur of the moment, fly by the seat of the pants type of thing. But often, or 99% of the time, we don't want to be in that position, right? And so that's where a good attorney, a good firm is run, is like you said, all that stuff building up to it, so that when those issues come, like, it's funny when you say that. I've been in situations where similarly there's a skill to reading your judge,
right?
And body language and different things like that. There was a judge, he's now retired. If he's watching, Judge Hollis was great. Not a lot of people loved Judge Hollis. I had zero problem with him. He reminded me of, not only just because he kind of looked like him, but his demeanor. You remember Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Oh yeah.
So Uncle Phil.
Oh yeah.
Like Judge Phil. That's who was.
Like Uncle Phil.
Very, very similar in his mannerisms.
Kind of scary, a
little bit scary. Yeah. Could be a little bit loud, annoying. Yeah. He would sometimes yell at my clients because they were struggling with the translation, and they would be answering something that and often I was like, you don't speak Spanish, you don't understand that the translation was actually bad. And so I'd have to sometimes correct it, but he'd get really frustrated sometimes, and my clients would get really scared. He never bothered me. But I also knew that he was really easy to read. And so, he'd get annoyed with both parties. And so you'd have something like that where a prosecutor, an ICE officer, or ICE attorney was going on and on about an issue that I could tell
he
was bored by, he didn't care by, and he had a droop, or he'd take his pen. Like, there was this classic thing that he'd take his glasses off and
start looking at it.
There's you could tell just his body language would drop, and I knew that was the one that I needed to get right to the crux of the issue. None of the minutia crap. Because we have to establish 3 or 4 elements of these crimes. Most of them are done on paper, or not crimes, but of these cases. And so I would just go, look, Your Honor, I'm going to gloss over this. I'm going to ask one question on his manner of entry. I'm going to ask one question on his criminal history.
Glasses
and then we're
going
to get into the actual merits. And you would see him perk up and be like, I appreciate that. And I knew that that's where I started getting his attention back. And other lawyers are so worried about spilling and repeating stuff that's in the
Right.
docs,
Forgetting something.
And they just want to make sure. And I get it, because there's appellate things that you have to worry about if you don't put everything on the record. But that's on paper. It's still in the record. It still can be referred to on appeal.
It's in your
a lot
motion.
of attorneys
It's
don't
in
understand
your
that.
motion, right.
And that's why we do a good job procedurally of putting a packet together for the judge. And if we missed some element, we can revisit it on appeal if we feel like the judge, or even when he's making our final arguments and he's saying something, if I feel like that wasn't addressed, I can still go back to it. But that art of kind of knowing when to say a lot and when to not say a lot, there's a lot of attorneys that don't understand that.
I'm going to speak your language, Kenny Rogers. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
And it's there's art forms to all of that.
Yeah,
right?
and read the room, and to be ahead of the issue that you already know, and some of it's reading the room, some of it is okay. You already spotted all those issues in your office. Okay, boom, 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 and this is how we're going to get to the promised land here, and this is going to be our direction.
And then I'm also, I laughed at myself yesterday because I'm usually so patient, and I'm usually really good about making sure I keep decorum with judges and whatever else. And then yesterday I was so annoyed, and I let the officer know in immigration that I was annoyed, and my clients even after were like, "Holy cow, you were annoyed." I had a green card interview yesterday where the officer was older, so I thought, man, she's got to have lots of experience, and maybe she does. I didn't recognize her, so she may have transferred from another office, or maybe she's new. But, we're going through this application. Have you ever been cited, detained, whatever, for a crime? And the kid's like, no, this is a teacher at a local high school. In fact, my kid's high school. I know him very well. He's a DACA kid, so he's fingerprinted all the time.
Right.
So he's gone through all these clearances. I know he's not got anything major that would disqualify him for this benefit that we're seeking. So he answers no, and she's like, oh, well, I've got this. And it was something with his license plate. And he's like, oh, yeah, now I remember that. Sorry. I was like 17, and there was a trailer that my dad had on his truck that apparently had the wrong tags or something like that. It wasn't even my car, so they gave me the ticket because I was driving, and I gave it to my dad, and my dad went and paid it. I didn't even think it went under me because it was my dad's car, but maybe it did because I was driving, whatever else. Oh, well, I'm going to need to see those documents. And I'm like, I interrupted that point. I usually don't have to say anything. I'm like, are we kidding me? It's a misdemeanor traffic violation. Even if he's guilty of it, it has no eligibility issues. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never been asked for like the speed. Oh, well, but what if this ended up being something more? I'm like, that's not how the court system works. You don't go in for a license plate and then they charge you with drugs.
Right.
Like
not typically, no.
How is that? Even if it's a worst case scenario, it's a misdemeanor no matter what. But she just would not. But I have to, I can't just take his word for it. I'm like, it's not even the word for it. You got the arrest in front of you. Right. I know you don't have the disposition documents, but even if he pled guilty to this, which I'm probably pretty sure he probably took a class or it got dismissed.
Worst case scenario, he's still walking through this.
No matter what, even if you get a guilty conviction of this, it doesn't affect what we're doing here. And I was like, look, my experience is if you do this RFE, this request for evidence, it's going to sit on your desk for the next 6 months. We should be done with this today. And I was super annoyed, and she just wouldn't move off it. And sure enough, she gives me a request for evidence, and I had sent him yesterday, and the case was dismissed. It was something about falsification a suspended tag on a plate or something stupid. And it's dismissed. It's dismissed, and that's and now good. I got to waste my time sending the thing in. So I am getting in although we've talked about all the decorum and all the diplomacy that we use, too. I'm also annoyed when I've been doing this so long and I know this is such a stupid, minutia, dumb, what are you doing this for? It's a waste of your time. And that's the government.
There's a reason why old warriors are old. They shoot first and ask questions later at some point. But I'm
sure my other attorney would have just been, oh, yeah, give it to us. We'll get it taken care of. I was freaking annoyed. I don't do this very often, so maybe that was part of the annoyance.
No, I respect the patience of the attorneys here big time because it does exceed.
The more that we do this, the more we know that we've got somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right, that it's somebody that's just jamming you up and for no reason whatsoever. And so it's like, and so we see But the good news is the procedure and the working and the issue spotting and being able to just kind of create this quickly.
And that was
rapidly.
the client's part. We would have had that taken care of if he would have disclosed that. And after he apologized and said, I didn't even remember that even happened. I get it, buddy. I get it. I mean, it was literally a traffic ticket. I wouldn't even been stressed about. I mean, we do have it on our questionnaire, and that's why procedurally we take care of these things so it doesn't come into this point. But I also wasn't going to, yell at him for a traffic
This is precisely why I never had an issue with the JFK thing, Epstein, all this stuff that's going on now about the Epstein thing. I just roll my eyes because I don't know what that procedure or those procedures are when it comes to this kind of crap. And I don't know who are in that world, and I don't even know if they know who in that world can do this. But I'm over here thinking in our world, in your world, I understand these procedures, and I understand them because I bled at every base once upon a time, as did you. And that's why you're sitting there looking at this gal that should know better. This is going to jam me up for 6 months. Over what?
I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never been asked for a traffic citation. I know technically the letter of the law says that you can do this, but why? Why are we doing this?
You're wasting
our time, your time,
my time, it's our time, everybody's
time. We're already behind on
the
these interviews for a year.
Seems to be in a hurry right now, and you don't seem to be with the times.
And I go, my experience is this is going to sit on your desk for the next 6 months. No. She could tell I was super annoyed, and she was patient with me. She's like, "No, I'll get this. If you get it to me, I'll get it taken
I'll
care
eat
of."
my hat.
Well, yeah,
right.
I've seen that before.
We'll see how that works. So when I see these people, and so I'm watching Megyn Kelly, and I'm watching some of these other pretty famous podcasters, like the Ben
Shapiro.
Benny, not Shapiro. I like him sometimes, small doses, but I do like him. Benny, is it Benny Johnson? What's that guy's name? Benny, I don't know, the Benny Show, something like that. I don't know. He's pretty out there. Ticked is all get out. Glenn Beck, ticked is all get out. All these, fairly well-known folks out there just ticked about Epstein. And I'm thinking the unforeseen consequences, the unintended consequences of some of these things is pretty dramatic. And I don't know. I know what cases like this look like behind closed doors, and I know how I view evidence, and I know that no one else can but me, and I don't necessarily love that I'm the one that gets to see that crap, but I am. And so I don't know. And so knowing all these procedures, all I'm saying is let's have some patience out there, but look for someone that has, like, the people that do the work for your home that you're building, the effort that your wife has put into finding a couch, and yourself, but mainly her, is, look, she's looking to fit a certain criteria. And when you need a lawyer, you're looking for someone that's bled that particular in that particular world. Immigration, there's no question I want them in your hands. Criminal, auto accident, the divorce stuff, the stuff that we tangle with around here. Yeah, I like the way we roll because we've hit every base and bled at every stop. And I love the way we began. So now we're the ones in the back going, okay, well, let's just go ahead and you can jump the shark on this, or you can, this is the better approach here. And sometimes, most of the attorneys around here are great. They're starting to
get it.
But to your point earlier, though, you can't coach it.
No, it's really hard. And that's again why I think my value, and I've played with this in my head a lot. I'm going, okay, I was good in the courtroom. I can think on my feet really well. It's a talent that not a lot of people have. And there's my decorum. I had good relationships and judges liked me and whatever else. And so sometimes I play with, am I better off in the courtroom for my clients? Because I truly do want what's best for my clients. But what I found is that the majority of the clients' concerns happen not in the courtroom.
Right.
It's the preparation, it's the procedure, and it's the aftermath, and it's the strategy, and it's the talking through. And if I'm in court all the time, which is unfortunately what was happening, like in the grind when you and I first started, it was literally, I was going from Phoenix at 8:30 in the morning to USCIS at 10 to Eloy at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Don't forget your nap at Reed Park.
Trying to nap in between because I had woken up at 5 in the morning or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was doing so much driving and so much moving back and forth. And there was value in that. And I'm so glad I went through that grind because what we're doing now wouldn't be possible if I didn't. Now but I couldn't take on as many clients. I would fail my clients as far as if they did have questions, there was no way they were finding me in the office. Communication. And that's the biggest.
Long in coming.
If you read attorneys' reviews.
Communication.
Very few times is it going to be the attorney screwed up in court.
Right.
Or the attorney didn't show up to court or something like
they
that.
Never talked to me. They never talked to me. They never talked to me.
Absolutely. The reputation is the communication. And so I didn't understand what my process was, or the attorney never prepped me for the hearing, or I didn't even talk to an attorney for a year and a half. That's never a problem in my office because I tell people all the time,
translate the word tramite.
Process, right?
Process. Court is just a step.
Yeah.
What you're saying is every other step, and court too, but every other step matters big time. And that's where all the communication, that's where they feel like
really that's where the case is won. Very rarely is it won like live. I mean, occasionally maybe you pull something rabbit out of your hat, but again, the way the courts want the system to be right now is most of it they're going to be prepping before you get into that that trial or that hearing. That's why we put all those documents together. In immigration court, maybe even less than criminal court, we can call witnesses. But once again, what I was telling you about with this judge, I learned very quickly that there were attorneys that were calling 5 or 6 character witnesses. And I learned very quickly that my judge didn't want to hear the 10-year-old child say that his mom is awesome because he knows that a 10-year-old, no matter how
there's a
good or bad
there.
the mom is, she's going to come in and say, I need mom. Mom is awesome. It was much better to, have her write a letter and not just the judge got bored with it, or the judge, it was really hard to ask children questions and you really didn't get to any real issues with that and substantive stuff. Yeah. And so I learned I don't want to call a kid unless I got if the kid's got something major to say, like they've got a disability or something that's going to come into play directly to my client. Yeah. The character stuff I can put on paper.
Something that's almost visual rather than audio.
Yeah.
Something that they can see.
I want them in the courtroom in the back. Right. That's fine, so that the judge has to look the family in the eye. There's strategy to all of that. But I learned that I don't need to call 6 witnesses for the same exact character. Like the character is a very small part of what I'm winning.
Right.
There's just an element of that.
47 minutes of the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life, and I had nothing.
Yeah.
So that took all of those years, and exactly what you're saying.
Yours was mostly preparation before you got
everything that you're saying right now. It's prep to get there, and it's prep now thereafter. And it's just that communication and that's what we're available to them.
Yeah, and that's what we never do. And that's the complaint that you'll get, when I get people coming into my office looking for another attorney. It was like, I could tell that the attorney was reviewing my file and like didn't have a clue about my case as we were walking into court.
Right.
And so that's not something that ever happens in our firm. Our attorneys care about it. They come to me months, if not days before, prepping that specific issue. Doesn't mean we're busy. I mean, we have a high volume of cases, but we've learned how with the staff that we have around to really make sure that those clients are fully aware of what's going to happen.
The communication prior to, I think you're onto something huge. I just think that lotion is motion. Motion is lotion. It is what it is. I mean, it starts from day one and it begins then.
And day one's with me, right? That's a really rare thing in a lot of attorneys that day one's you're talking to me. I don't send you to, and that's so common. I hear that complaint all the time. I've never even met the attorney or I met with a paralegal, and they're giving half the time they're giving legal advice that isn't even true,
right? Or
selling something that they can't even offer, right? And that's sad. But that for me, and that's the comparison of this game that I played in my head. Is it better for me to be walking them, hand holding them through the entire step? But that way I can only take 2 or 3 clients. Sure. It's really hard to do that. Or have we developed a system, and I think we have, where you meet with me, walk you through step by step what's going to happen. We're going to review that as it goes on, but you know from the beginning what's going to happen. I'm really good about, I've gotten those down to a science of explaining things. And then if there's something that happens, whether it's with one of my attorneys or it's just you've got a question, you know that, you know, you can schedule an appointment directly with me if you really need to answer it. Most of my staff's been with me so long, they can answer the question too. So all of that.
So it sounds like there's not much difference
I've found more value being available than being the person that's hand-holding. Yeah. Not to say that that wasn't valuable when we did
it. Because now we can handhold. And I don't know about handhold, but we walk the journey with them. We start the process. We begin. We start the motor. Okay, here's how we get from here.
And the journey's the same. There just might be some other people driving the car at points in the journey.
The journey looks exactly the same, but then your staff gets your notes. They know, okay, that's what
Which
the
is
wizard says.
Any good business, it's not even a law firm, that's eventually where that's another complaint I get. It's awesome to be the one-man show, right? I've got, in fact, somebody came to me and said, oh, yeah, I think they've got the assistant and the attorney, and that's all. And I'm like, it's good for that person.
Yeah.
And he's basically returning calls and whatever else. But it's not done efficiently because those calls take 3 weeks to get back because he's got
there's a
that
reason
many
why
on his
there's
desk.
2.4 stars.
So there's an efficiency part of business with, and everyone knows this, that you scale and you just have to have the person at the top that knows how to control the
Everybody loves
parts.
to put in McDonald's as the perfect scaled
person or persons. I've got multiple.
McDonald's is the perfect scaled business. Well, I guess there's something to this. Somebody is in a drive-thru or at a front register ordering something, and that goes from point A to point B, and that order is XYZ, and XYZ is the same every time. So they get a hamburger. It has 3 pickles on it. It has this amount of ketchup with the onions that are already in it, and da 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 da. Okay, and it's the same every time. Now, whether you like it or not,
going to McDonald's,
you're going to get McDonald's,
and it's the same in China, right?
Right.
It's a little different menu, but we've had McDonald's all over the world.
Right. It's going to be the same wherever you go in Amsterdam. You're hankering for a Big Mac. I don't know, whatever. Let's carry on. Well, okay, let's carry on. I am not a hater. I kind of like myself a Big Mac here and there, but that's when I'm, wanting to punish myself for something. Maybe it's a reward. I don't know. Let's carry on. I like that we do the way we do and the way we did.
And there's not to say, I wouldn't change it. And for me, I look at it as that's the only way I think I could have done this, was to do that grind. And look, I had this goal in the back of my head, and it actually took longer than I thought. I was like, okay, when my youngest gets into kindergarten, so I started law school when my oldest, who's in the room right now, was 2 years old. Or I started my firm when he started my firm when he was 4 years old. So my goal was, and then my youngest, I had 4 under 5. So during that time and then a few years that followed, I wanted, by the time I got into kindergarten, to hire my first associate, to not do that grind.
Right.
Took me till he was about 2nd or 3rd grade, so about 2 or 3 years longer than I wanted to, because that grind was the only thing I knew, and I was scared to hire another attorney. I was scared
to take that step.
Yeah, to turn that responsibility over. It's been amazing since I did that, because I've been able to learn this kind of system.
It's a big step, because you're like white knuckling.
And I look
at first,
and I look at firms right now that go from, like, they scale so fast, so they start being an attorney, and then they're already hiring a bunch of associates under that. And I know that's the mentality of that generation right now, especially this younger generation, is you scale, you advertise like crazy, and you're going to have some fall through the cracks, but if you have enough volume, you're going to survive.
Right.
And I get it, and I'm sure there's value in that. It just wouldn't be the way that I do it. I'm glad I went through that. Yeah. Didn't make a ton of money, but I went through that experience and grind.
40 grand first year.
7 or 8 years.
41 the second. And I thought that was an upgrade. I'm going in the right direction. Year 2 when I saw that I went up $1,000.
I'm trying to remember, but it was a monthly for me, so I don't even know if I've done the math, but it was just like that survival amount. That
barely making it.
You gotta.
Just barely making it. That dude had one on his little brother on the way at that point, but and he was 2. So grandma was my first hire. And she came in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and ordered medical records.
And people are going to and these gurus and coaches may tell you, look, you did it wrong because you didn't need to do that grind for 5 years and make the 40 grand that you did to survive, because you could have done it by, spending the money on advertising. But I was scared to do everything. Like for me, I needed to do everything because that was just the mentality of, if I'm going to survive, all this money has to come into me. Like, so I've got to be the one answering phone calls, and it's not necessarily true. And I've learned,
I get it,
as we've scaled that I could have done it earlier. I could have advertised earlier. I could have spent money in different places. And I know that there's value in what this generation does.
But you wouldn't know what you know.
I wouldn't be the attorney
or
the boss that I was if I didn't go through that 5 years of grind. And I feel like that there is, when you hire these new attorneys or these new, advertising, Rafa Law Group, that guy hasn't been an attorney for a long time, or Rafi or whatever his name's. All those guys, that grind necessarily wasn't done. At least in the way that we did it. And there's some value to having that old school mentality mixed with the new school stuff.
I
wouldn't have it any other way. It may not be the smartest anymore to do, but it's the way I know.
I understand.
And it's the way.
You've got your Walmarts, and you've got your fast foods, and you got your thises and your that's. But when you're going out to dinner with your wife, you're usually going to some place, handful of times, some quaint place that the person knows every ingredient and every daggum dish that they do. It's not just some sort of put together thing. Not that there's anything untasty about those things that are put together like that, but there's something special about the person that knows every little ingredient and every little tiny thing. There's something special about that.
I wish those survived more than they did.
I know. And it's the little man. It's I don't like closed signs. I don't like, the big money shutting people down. It certainly does bleed into criminal. It bleeds into law, the practice of law, all practices of law. And you're right. It's though you can tell a peer, you can tell who's good and who's not very quickly. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, so can the judges. And at some point, Skippy that skipped all those little steps and didn't bleed because he didn't have to, because his car had air conditioning when he was growing up, and ours didn't. And so Skippy skipped a bunch of steps, and so at some point you're cheating yourself. Now maybe the long run they just learned the same lesson we learned in a long drawn out war instead of a short.
But we've also seen a lot of those that are suspended and other things and whatever else. So it's not, there's some hard lessons that sometimes are
tough lessons to learn out there, no matter what you do.
Yeah. And so, it's just the way, like I said, I don't want to purport, because I'm sure that there are lawyers that have done it, and that generation of just, let's go, let's grind, let's throw stuff against the wall and go. It's not my personality, and so I don't think I would have been able to do that anyway. Just not. I needed to experience grind. I needed to be on the ground floor for it. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't a money maker for that little bit.
I neither.
But it was what I needed. And so I think when somebody's looking for, because it also goes the opposite. I've still got those guys that are in that grind mode, like I said, that are the old guys. They know what they're doing.
They haven't left that.
But they run a crappy firm.
Right.
And they're also sometimes very ornery. There's a balance between it all.
I've been guilty of that one.
And they're jaded about it, and they're like, hire me or not. And so their reputation goes down because they don't have that hunger. Yeah, they don't have that. There's a balance of all of it. And I've learned to love the scaling part of it that I didn't think I would, and managing. And that scared me when I moved into that kind of more role. That's been fun to develop as well, and find out what's efficient to garner new clientele. But ultimately, we're still getting the same referrals that we were. That's 90% of our business. Now we've got 10% now that's been fun to play with that come from the internet or whatever else.
Sure.
But 75% of it is those clients that
Yeah, that
that
tell their
that
cousins,
tell their
that tell
cousins
their
and
neighbor,
give their
that tell their church
neighbor,
people.
or have had a case for 20 years and are coming back or whatever it is. And so I know that's where my bread and butter is, and that's where I would have lost that if I didn't do what I did.
Yeah, no, I had to learn the hard way. I was forced into management, and honestly, it's been a long learn. I probably took too long to learn, but I'm starting to like it now, like you were just saying. I wanted to bring you back to the beginning of law school. If you would have set a contract exam, I'm just throwing that out there just for fun, on your desk, like you had a desk, on a desk at the library where we would have been hanging out back then, prior to 1 second of law school, and you put that name whatever, I'm just going to go with contracts or criminal law or immigration law. I could read a fact pattern is what they called them, right? I could read a set of facts, and I could circle probably 100% of every issue, 100% of the time that fast. I didn't need the law school jargon. I needed that to explain to me what the circles were.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is a skill that you're either built with or you're helping round the curve, take the sharp edges off some of your attorneys, because they either got it or they don't. And if they got it, typically they're sitting in your chair right now.
Yeah, it's true. No, and that's true. And for me, to wrap it all up, I know we're kind of running long, is that for me, when I'm looking for an attorney, it's not necessarily that innate ability to do what I do, because I do what I do, and that's my skill. I want people that care. So when my attorney came in 2 days ago crying because there was a result that she didn't want, wasn't her fault. The client forgot he had a wife in court. And the judge asked, and then she's going out, and then it freaked her out, and she's like, okay, apparently he's not married, but after, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. And that was kind of a major portion of the case. And the client ultimately admitted it and whatever. You can't make this stuff up. It's not here. There were neither here. It was a recent marriage, but either way. So we're going to do a motion to reconsider. But she came in crying, just like, and I was like, look, the result wasn't your fault. Maybe there was something that you could have done to speak up over your client, but sometimes the judges don't like that because they're asking him a direct question, and then there's objections and whatever else because you're leading your client. So I don't know exactly what you could have done to fix it. However, all I care is that you care. Like, you're here in tears because you feel like this affected his life. Like, you could have walked away and said, you idiot, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And yeah, exactly. And his wife was in the courtroom too. So
in the courtroom,
because the question was, do you have any other family members? And he went, oh, I've got a brother and parents. Anybody else? No.
And are you sure?
But the spouse is kind of the major strategy that we were doing. So anyway, long story short. But
you liked that she cared.
Back to the thing was, I just said, look, that's what I'm looking for, is that you care. Because the more you care, the more you're not ever going to have that happen again. Not because it was something that you did, but you're going to ask for a recess right there.
Yep.
And because you're going to learn from this and say, I need to talk to my client and let him
remind him
that he has a wife. Yeah.
Right.
Instead, unfortunately, with experience, we learn those types of things, but she cares. And that's what I want for me. But she's not maybe going to be, that's not the managerial side's not her. I just want the passion of what she does.
And I found that these folks love to advocate and love to do the lawyer.
Went to law school at 50 years old, and so this was for her benefit. It wasn't because she has a passion for it.
So she has a little bit of life experience going into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to me, I would have fought really hard. There's no crying in baseball. My hands would have been shaking. I don't.
It's not me, but yeah. But meaning I don't shed tears over the cases.
I would never shed a tear, and it would be like, why are you crying in here? But I do love that they care.
Yeah.
And that you hit it right on. You love that they bleed over what they're doing, and the staff does too. And you look for that, and you can't coach that either.
Nope.
So that we can circle issues all we want, and you're the wizard, and I get to be the Oz, and so I'm just a wingnut behind the curtain. But nonetheless, this is going to be, this chapter that of management is fun. Name this pod what he said just a second ago. I don't remember what you said. It was awesome. The passion. You should have been jacked up.
I don't know.
Yeah. We'll come up. The passion.
Nope, you're not liking that.
The procedures. No. Blood, guts, and glory. We'll let this be. What do you think it should be? We found the couch.
I'll figure it out.
Okay.